Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to today's webinar for Sage 50 Accounts. And we're going to be looking at running your year end in the account software today. So that point where you think, right, today's the day, I'm going to run through that process and run it in Sage. What does it look like? How do you go about doing that? What to watch out for as well. My name's Michael. I'm a learning facilitator here at Sage. So we run loads of webinars for Sage 50 Accounts. You will receive a link to our registration page on your follow-up email. You'll receive that round about an hour after we finish. So if you are interested in attending any other sessions, we've got loads booked in. Our timetable currently runs up to the end of February at the moment. Right, now just before we get stuck into today's webinar, a little bit of housekeeping. So you don't need a microphone for these sessions. If you have one and you've enabled it when you've joined, you will find that it's muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself. Any questions that you have for us today, you'll need to pop them into the questions panel. Just click the little speech bubble icon, which is on your toolbar down the right-hand side of your screen. That will expand and you'll have access to that box in the bottom right-hand corner where you can enter any questions or comments you have. We're joined today by Abby and Laura. They'll both be in the background helping me and answering your questions today. You'll either get a straightforward answer. If you haven't provided enough information, you might get a question back. You might be prompted to contact our support team, or you may just get a link to a detailed article from our help centre, but keep them coming. We'll try our best to react and answer as many of those as we can. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, those are available to download during today's session. There's the full colour option as a PDF, and also there's the what we term the print-friendly version with the colour stripped out. So you can take your pick for those. They're only available to download during the session though, so do take that opportunity if you want a copy of them. There is detailed information, however, available from our help centre. Now, as I mentioned, you will receive an email after today's session. You'll get that roundabout now afterwards. That will include a link to today's recording of today's session. So if you need a bit of a recap, if you miss any of it, then you can watch that again, pick up on the bit you missed. Maybe you're not ready to run it yet, so obviously keep your link handy. You can always come back to that and have a bit of a recap if needed. It'll also include a link to our webinar registration page. So as I say, do have a look at that. Get yourself registered for any topics you are interested in. We've got loads of other topics coming up relating to year end, whether that's management reports, clearing your audit trail, so tasks that you may complete after running your year end, removing old records, that type of thing. If you are interested, as I say, have a look at that and see what suits. There'll also be a link to our recordings page where you can access that 24/7. So if there's any sessions you have missed previously, then you can always catch up in that way. Right, this is what we're going to be covering in the session today. So I've got a couple of quick polls for you this afternoon, I should say. So we'll just run a quick check just to gain a little bit of understanding of the background. I want to cover a couple of questions up front as well, just to almost like nip those in the bud a little bit before we get into the webinar itself. We're then going to be running through some demonstrations, so talking a little bit about preparing for year end. So what do you need to make sure you've done before you get to that point where you think, right, I'm going to run the year end process in Sage 50. We'll be looking at the process itself, so we'll run through that, explain the options as we go. And then we'll also pick up on some of those post year end checks. So how can you make sure that the year end's gone through successfully? We're going to talk a little bit about the optional tasks. However, the optional tasks are covered by the additional webinars that we are running. So watch out for those and get yourself registered. And we're going to touch on company archives as well. And I think next Monday, Laura will be running a live session on company archives. So do get yourself signed up for that. Quite a few opportunities over the next couple of months to attend that company archive session as well. Just right at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support. So, and if there is any outstanding questions at that point, we'll try and pick as many of those up as we can. If we can't answer your question on the session today, we will just drop you an email at some point before close of play today. But do keep your questions coming. So I'm going to quickly pop those polls on your screen. And if you don't mind, if you could get involved. So first of all, how many times have you personally run the year end in Sage 50 Accounts? I mean you personally, I don't mean your company, I mean you personally. Have you run it before? Have you never run it? Have you run it once, twice, 3 times or more? So let us know. Just choose an option, click submit, and it'll just give me an idea of everyone's experience. I'll just wait till I get loads of you having voted for that one. It gives me a nice spread then. Excellent. So we got over 80% of you having voted for that one. I'll quickly share those results for you as well. So we got just literally just over half have never run a year end in Sage before. We got about 21% of you that have run it once or more, and 25% of you which have run it 3 times or more. And just a minor percentage just run it a couple of times. So those of you that have run it before, you might just be coming along thinking, well, I'll go along just as a bit of a reminder. You never know. You might go away thinking, well, actually, I learned nothing there. Just a bit of reassurance. Your understanding is right. Some of you might go away and think, well, actually, I knew most of that, but I've picked up a few tips. It's got rid of a few myths, that maybe misunderstandings as well. And for those of you that have never run it before, I'm hoping you'll go away feeling a little bit more confident, thinking, actually, it's not as scary as you think it's going to be. Just a little wizard, really, that's going to guide you through. And you just, a couple of options, click a button, and that'll be it done. The second poll that I'll quickly share with you, if I can find it on my list, is for those of you that have run one before, or maybe about to run one. So how long after your year end are you likely to actually run the year end process? Do you normally run that within a month? Do you normally leave it for 1 to 2 months, 3 to 6, or maybe longer than 6 months? So just have a guesstimate of when you run that, normally how long do you leave that? Used to be many years ago that, and I talked many years ago, we talked about version 2 of Sage 50 accounts, where you had to run year end before you could actually start processing in the new financial year. So bearing in mind we're now up to version 33. So been quite a while ago since that was the case. Right, again, loads of you voting for that one. Quite an even split on that one. If I just quickly share the results. So probably the highest voting saying we normally do it within a month. Quarter of you saying 1 to 2 months, 20% or just over, 3 to 6, and just 26% there, more than 6 months. So quite a divide. Right, let's get rid of that and we'll get stuck into the webinar itself. Right, so picking up on that last question, how long are you likely to leave it? And we'll sort of get rid of that one for those of you that generally feel a bit of pressure to run it straight away. The question we always get asked is, do you need to run the year end before processing? Particularly for those of you that have never run it before, you might think, well, I need to run that year end before I continue entering anything into the new financial year. Do you need to do that? The simple answer is no, you don't. You will continue entering transactions, any other processes in Sage, whether that's running bank reconciliations, using bank feeds, month ends, invoicing, adding new records, running VAT returns, submitting them online, anything like that, you will continue as normal and you come back to your year end as and when you're ready to run it. So just forget about your year end if you need to. So how long you want to leave that, it's entirely up to you. So it's quite common to process 6 months or more into your new financial year before actually you come back to run that year end. So we had 26% of you voting for more than 6 months today. So quite common. So don't think you've got to run that almost immediately to stop before you start processing. You don't. Continue as normal. When you're ready, that's when you'll run it. Other question I want to quickly sort of nip in the bud at this point as well is, and probably chances are you might never need to do this yourself, but can you shorten or extend the financial year in Sage 50 accounts? Now, by default, Sage 50 accounts, it always works around a 12-month financial year. So if you are in a position, maybe you're in your business or maybe for tax purposes, you've been advised to change your financial year. Because of that 12-month restriction, as it were, you would need to follow a process if you come to the point where, for whatever reason, you need to shorten or extend your financial year. There are step-by-step guides available from our help centre if you need them. So I've included 2 links there. They are easy to find anyway if you do go into the help centre itself. So do check that out if you are in that position. So quite an easy process to follow through as well. Anyway, we're going to get on with the year end itself. We're going to get stuck into the main process. So we're going to start with preparing for year end. Now, there's not a lot for me to demonstration as far as preparing for year end is concerned. Probably goes without saying, you want to complete all your processing for the financial year. The sooner you run your year end, the more likely you are to have missed something. So if you put it off, you know, that purchase invoice that you haven't paid, that will probably come to light the longer you leave that. You probably get your supplier chasing you for payment and you think, well, actually, we've missed that out. We haven't entered it into our accounts. So the longer you leave it, the more likely you are to have resolved any processing errors or any just omissions. So the longer you can leave it, probably the better. Check your chart of accounts. This is something you can do at any time. Now, there is an option to check your chart of accounts when you run the year end, but prior to running your year end, you're going to be running probably your year end report. So things like your trial balance, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, aged debtors, aged creditors, maybe some other reports as well. That will differ. There's no set list of reports that you need to run. If you need some advice on that, probably your accountant is probably the best person to speak to. But checking your chart of accounts, it's going to be used by some of your management reports, such as your profit and loss and your balance sheet. If you don't know what I'm talking about by the chart of accounts, we've got some webinars planned in for those as well, and your management report. So you'll have a much better understanding how those reports calculate and what they show. So again, get yourself signed up for those. But check your chart of accounts. You want to make sure it doesn't contain any errors. You want to make sure you've backed up as well. You've checked your data. Now, checking your data and backing up, something you should be doing regularly anyway. Again, you'll be prompted to do that when you go through the year-end wizard, but you don't want to get to the point where you run the year-end, you check the data or, you know, during that wizard and it comes up with a problem. You want to be checking it regularly. So when you get to the year-end, you don't want any surprises. Now, if I just quickly share my screen and I want to touch on the chart of accounts. So after today's session, if nothing else, go and check your chart of accounts. So to check your chart of accounts, we're going to go into nominal codes and you've got your chart of accounts option at the top. Now the chart of accounts basically provides the structure for some of your management reports. So for example, it's used by your profit and loss and your balance sheet. It provides the structure. It tells essentially those reports which nominal codes to include. So if we go into the chart of accounts, and you might find when you go into the chart of accounts that you've got one layout, you may have more. Now, all you need to do to check your chart of accounts, and it was Nicola there, you mentioned yours said partial. I'll touch on that one in a second, but highlight your chart of accounts, click edit, and when you go into edit, all you need to do is click check. So if yours says partial, open it, click check, and it'll tell you what the problems are. So basically it means there are some issues within your chart of accounts. So if you run that check, it'll tell you what those are. And of course, you've got the help link here at the top, so you can click that and find out what that error means, or errors, what they are, and what you need to do about that. So mine says no errors found in this chart of accounts. I haven't got any nominal codes that have been set up recently and maybe haven't been added into the chart of accounts. When we run year end, the software will look at that chart of accounts and it will look at the profit and loss section. It'll say, right, all the nominal codes included in these ranges, I'm going to clear those down as at the year end. So that's how it knows what nominal codes to clear down. Now, if you've got more than one chart of accounts, again, you might just run through them all anyway, just edit them, and again, click check at the top. Now, what I'm going to quickly do is I'm just going to knock this line out here. So I'm just going to remove a line just to create an error. So if I save that, and so this is one that Nicola mentioned. If you've got a one that says partial, all it means is you've got some errors in there. Now, it could be a range of errors. So edit your chart of accounts, click check at the top. That will come up with this chart of accounts errors window. Just preview it and it will give you an idea and it will tell you exactly what the error is. So in this case, it's telling me nominal code 4000 is not represented in the chart. So it's not included. And it means if I was to run the likes of with this being a sales nominal, if I was to run a profit and loss report, it wouldn't be picking up this nominal code 4000. So it would mean my year-end reports are wrong. Also, when I run year-end, it wouldn't know to clear that down because it's not included in my chart of accounts. So you need to resolve any errors. So let's just quickly do that. Just going to put that one back in. Again, if you make any changes whatsoever to your chart of accounts layout, just click check at the top, save your changes, and this is what you're after. No errors found in this chart. If you need some help resolving those errors, get in touch with our support team, or just follow the information in our Help Center article, or even better, come along to my webinar, which we're running in a few weeks' time. Get yourself signed up and we'll explain the chart of accounts in a lot more detail. So I'm just going to OK that. So as I say, if nothing else today, get into your nominal, into your chart of accounts and start checking those layouts, see if there's any problems. Right, the other one to quickly mention was running reports. Obviously, quite a big task, that one. There's no definitive list as to which reports you might need. So when you run your reports, just a case of clicking your icon whenever you're running, you're probably going to print it. You might just preview it, you might save it a file. What I would recommend that you maybe do is when you're running reports, if you are just previewing them, when you're running up to, say, your year-end date, which in this case, this set of data runs up to, the financial year runs January 2024 to December 2024. So when you're running up to your year-end date, you preview it, why not save a copy of it? So if you've done all your processing and you think, right, just going to quickly generate my management reports before we run year-end, save a copy of it. Easy enough to do, just click export at the top, and then you can start saving it as a PDF file. Give it a file name, maybe create a folder for yourself. I'll just put one on my desktop, I create a folder, and we'll call it year-end or yeet-end. I'll try and correct that one out. Let's rename it. So in that folder, save it as a PDF. It means I've got a copy of that there. So, if you've lost your printed copy, or you don't know where you've saved that to previously, it means I've now got a copy of that report saved, and I can always access that PDF without having to go back to like a company archive or restore back to a previous set of data or anything like that. I'll just access it. So it means it's nice and easy. So do that for your management reports. So you're creating almost like a mini archive or a mini library of all of those reports that you would run as part of your year end. You can do it for other times as well. So maybe a month end, or if you're doing stock takes or anything like that, you can save copies of those reports if you need them. Right, so that's all I really wanted to touch on preparing for year end. Got one outstanding question there, and it was from Glenn. Glenn, you mentioned, can you still run depreciation as part of running a month end without running year end? Absolutely. You just can't, if you use the month end option in your software, which is used to process the depreciation in the fixed assets register, you just continue doing everything as normal. So you run a month ends, bank reconciliations, VAT returns, just forget about the fact that you've gone into your next financial year. Yeah, you might get a message here and there which you can say, right, tick the box to stop me getting that message. It's a bit annoying after a while. So just continue, run that month end, include your accruals, prepayments, depreciation, and then again, you come back to run that year end as and when you're ready. Now you might go 6 months, so you might have done 6 month ends across what will be your new financial year. and then you just come back to finish off that year end as and when you're ready. So nothing to worry about, continue as normal. Right, so I'm going to go back to the slides, and I want to mention now, and we'll start running through the year-end process itself. So let's say you've done all your processing, you've put it off long enough, you've gone through the stress and people jumping up and down saying we need to run year-end. You've done all your reports, you've got everything you need, and you think, right, today's the day, I'm going to go into work, I'm going to run that year-end, get it out of the way. So how do you go about running that? Well, it's a nice, simple task, you'll be pleased to know. Within your software, you'll go to Tools, Period End, Year End. You need all your other users, so you'll need all those other users, your colleagues, to log out while you do this. Fairly quick task as well, depending how many transactions you have, of course. It'd just be a case of going Tools, Period End, Year End, and it'll bring up a window similar to what you can see on screen. And we're going to run through that in just a moment. There's a number of options on here. One is to create an archive. We'll be explaining more about these as we go. You have options for setting your budgets for what will be your new financial year. The year end's going to post journals to clear down those profit and loss year end balances and also advance that financial year. It lists it. And also there's an opportunity to set a lock date. So we'll run through that process, show you what that looks like. Again, just trying to boost your confidence a little bit. So remember, mine tells me at the bottom here, my financial year starts January 2024. So we're going to run the year end as at the end of December 2024. So to access that, we just go to Tools, Period End, and then down to Year End. So I just get yes, I've got that ledger open in the background, and it displays that window, what you would have seen on the screenshot just a few moments ago. So we're split into 3 sections in here. So first of all, we've got the prepare for year end, so a few tasks. We've got the year end options, and then we've got the year end, run year end summary at the bottom. Now, when you come into here, really simple. First option is to check your data. Now, if you've been checking your data, let's say we finished our processing, we checked our data, we took the backup, and we didn't find any issues, that's fine. And we've done nothing since then. If you want, you don't necessarily need to complete it again because you've done nothing since then. But if you're unsure, you just want to click it, just give it a click, let it run through. Obviously, the time it takes will be dependent on obviously your hardware and also how much data you actually have. Mine's incredibly quick because we've got what, just under 6,000 transactions. Not many as far as Sage 50 is concerned. So it tells me the check's complete. If you get a progress bar running slow, just let it run through. But it tells me no problems to report on the data files. So we just okay that. If there were any errors, warnings, or comments, so if anything's identified in this area, you would just click the appropriate tab down the side here and then make a note of the information, get into the help option here at the top, and that will let you search for the error, warning, or comment. Find out what it means, what you need to do about that. But hopefully, because you've been checking your data before you even got this far, there's nothing to surprise you there. You should have resolved any errors, warnings, or comments, particular errors, they should be resolved before you even get to running the year end. Next option is checking your chart of accounts for any omissions. Now, I've already talked about checking your chart of accounts. Now, we'll always recommend that you check it within the nominal because it does a full check. It checks for a number of different errors. All this check does, when I click it, it checks your chart of accounts and it looks for any missing nominal codes. It doesn't run a full range of checks. All it does is, right, are all the nominal codes included in your chart of accounts? Or are they included in at least one of the ranges? If they are, then you'll get this prompt. But always do that check within nominal codes and then chart of accounts. So again, when you come to this point, this is the message that you're going to get. All nominal codes are represented in your chart of accounts. So we'll just okay that. Next, take your backup. Just a normal backup. You might, as part of your year end, you might think, well, actually, just this once, I'll do an all files backup. You might archive that away then. It's quite a significant change in your data, I suppose, at this point. So you might take an all files backup. Ordinarily, probably when you're backing up on a daily basis, it'll only be data files that you are backing up. It's up to you what you want to include though. You might even do things like report files backup. You might do one of those separate. You might do a layout template separate. But you need to make sure that data files is included. I'll give it a file name. Obviously, you might use your company name or whatever you want to put. So I'll just put Sage before run year end 2024. Choose your location. Should just default to your last location. So on mine, I think it was just the desktop. That's where I normally pop it. Obviously, if you've got a different drive or something that you want to back up to, that's fine. You can do that. So choose your settings, pop in your file name, your location, and then just OK that. Again, depending on what options you've ticked and how big your data is, that will determine how how long that takes. We'll just let that run through. So first three options, nice and straightforward. You've probably done most of that prior to coming into the year end. Next is to do with company archives. Now, company archives has been around for a long time within Sage. And an archive is basically a copy of your data as it stands right now. So if you've got future data transactions, fine, all your historic information and all the information from your current financial year. So all of that information, when you run the year end and this box is ticked, it will take a copy of that and create what we term an archive company. So leave it ticked. I would never recommend to anyone, unless you are 100% certain you understand what it is and that you will never use it, then you might at that point remove the tick, but otherwise leave it ticked. You always get rid of it later on if you don't want it, but leave it ticked. The archive location is just saying, right, well, we're going to save it to this location. Now it'll come up, defaults to, but in this case it says year end 2024. I might put something else in there. I might change it. I might change the archive folder. I can't change the path to the archive. The path to the archive will always be where your data is held. So if your data is held on a server, that's where the archive is going to be created. So I might just put my initials on the end of that bottom one, just so I know I've got a unique folder name. So I'm just going to OK that. So really, we haven't really done anything. We've done nothing to change the data at this point. We've clicked the option to check our data. We've checked our chart of accounts. We've taken a backup. And we've just left this option ticked to create an archive when we run that year end. Right, next we've got these three options, the year end options. The first is to do with budgets. Now, if you don't use budgets in Sage 50 accounts, then you don't need to do anything with this. If you're not using it, but you're thinking, actually, I'd like to learn more about budgets, strangely, we've got a budgets webinar, which is tomorrow morning at 11. So get yourself signed up for that one. Repeat that on, I think it's Wednesday next week. So a good chance to learn about the budget options in Sage. Split into two. We've got a one that covers the standard budget options, and then a follow-up session that will cover the advanced session, the advanced budget options. Now, if you do use the budgets, we can tick the box and it'll bring up this window for us. And there's an option for setting nominal and department budgets, and also for setting stock budgets, and they're pretty much the same. The big difference at this point is this one here that says forecasts. Now, you'll only get this if you've got an advanced budgeting method enabled within your software. You won't see it otherwise. It'll just say actuals and budgets. Now, even if you don't set budgets at this stage, you can always do it manually in your next financial year. And you can also change them in what will be your new financial year as well. So up to you if you want to set them at this point. It's not common to use them at this point, to be quite honest. But if we just take nominal budgets as an example, it says, right, base the new year budgets on the current year. Now, What that will mean is, right, when I run the year end, so it's obviously going to advance my financial year. Well, this set of data would advance it to January 25 to December 25. And it's saying, right, the budget figures, what figures do you want to use? Do you want to use the actual figures, so based around actual sales figures? Do you want to just use your existing budgets? Just leave them intact, leave them in place. Or if you're using one of the advanced methods, do you want to use the forecasts here? And obviously, if you are using the advanced budgeting method, then the forecast year is what you'd want to use. That's the whole point of entering a forecast year. So you'd probably want to use that. So you've got the choice of the three. So only the two of you are set up for standard budgets. Third option, if you're set up for the advanced budgets. Now for actuals and budgets options, you've got this option here as well. So you can say, right, I want to increase those figures, whichever option you've chosen, I want to increase them by whatever percentage you want. Now again, this isn't commonly used, this. It will increase those figures across the board. So it would mean that, let's say you were basing it around your actuals. If you put, like, let's say 10% in there as an example, whatever your sales figure is for the current financial year, we'll use that as the budget for the next financial year, like for particular nominal code, and it would increase by 10%. But it would do that across the board. It would do it for all of your sales, your purchases, your direct expenses, and your overheads. It'll do that across the board. You'll still be able to manually change them if you want. That's what this option will do. So choose your option if you are using budgets. And you've got a similar option for if you do stock budgets as well. Well, I'll just leave it as that for the time being. So that's that budgets option. Again, we'll find out more about budgets if you come along to the budgets webinars. Next, we've got this option here. It says the date to appear on the year-end journals, the last day of the current year. And it will use that date to post a series of journals. So whatever your year-end balances are against your profit and loss codes, the software will post a journal to clear that year-end balance down. And it will post that journal, date is on, whatever date is here, which is your year-end date. It should pick up the right date. Don't change it. It does let you change it, but don't change it. Just accept the date that's there. So I could click that calendar and I could change it to something else, but there's no reason to change it. So just accept that date. It will pick up the right one for you. Third option in this section, it says prevent new transactions from being entered before this date. So this is what we refer to as the lock date. Now I mentioned Laura's going to be running a live webinar on this on Monday coming, so next week. And she'll go through that in a bit more detail. So lock dates I'm thinking company archives there. Company archives is Monday, lock dates a little bit further in the future. But again, watch out for that. There's recordings otherwise. Right. Now, what lock date is, just to quickly explain that one, it's a way of preventing people from backdating transactions and controlling who can and can't do that. So if you tick the box, what it does is it sets the date here to, by default, it would set it to the start of what would be my new financial year. So once it's advanced that financial year, in this case from January 24 to December 24, it's going to advance that to January 25 to December 25. It's going to pick up that date, so the first day of that financial year. Now, what that would mean is if someone tries to backdate a transaction prior to that date that you've got specified, it would either give you an error or a warning, depending on your level of access within the software. It's got to prompt you saying either you're trying to post this transaction prior to the lock date that's set. Depending on your access levels, it's either going to say you can't do this, and that's the end of the story, or it's going to say you're trying to post this, are you sure you want to do it? And it'll give you a yes or no option. But again, you'll find out more about that in the dedicated webinar if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about that. So I'm just going to switch it on. We've then got the summary at the bottom telling us what's about to happen. So running it at the end of this financial year will see it's going to change the financial year. It's going to transfer balances from my profit and loss accounts. It's going to set all the profit and loss accounts for the new financial year. It's going to archive my data. It's going to create nominal budgets based on these options I've chosen. It's going to create some stock budgets, again, based on those budget options I've chosen. And also, because I've ticked it and I've set a date, it's going to set a lock date as well. So this wizard here, this page here, nice and straightforward. Now, I've talked about it quite a bit, but there's not really a lot to cover there. You've run through a few options at the top here, clicked a few buttons, and you've chosen your budget options. You ignore this one, it'll pick up the right date, and you've got that option whether to switch a lock date on or not, and what date you want to set. Other than that, we just click Run Year End. So I'm going to click it. It tells me I'm about to run the year end for the 1st of January 2024 to end of December 2024. Do you want to continue? So yes to that. And it also tells me processing the year end will apply to any existing layout of accounts. So that's the chart of accounts layouts that we were looking at before. Do you wish to continue? So you choose yes to that one as well. Progress bar generates a year end report. So I'll just preview that one so you can see it. Now the year end report's in the background there. I'll come back to that one in a moment. It tells me on this message, so this is how you can confirm that your year end's been advanced. It tells me the year end process for the financial year ending at the end of December 2024 has been completed. And tells you what the new financial year will be. So we'll just okay that. Now that itself, that's the year end complete. I've run the year end. It's posted all the journals, it's cleared down the figures, and that list of journals that it has posted, that's what the year end report. So this is this list here. This is a list of the journals that have been posted. I'll just zoom in a bit so you can see some of those a little bit clearer. So whatever the year-end balance was against, say, my sales account, 4,000, which in this case, it should have been £179,171.03. That was the year-end balance. And it would have been a credit balance. So it's posted a JD to essentially zero that balance down as at this date. Doesn't matter if you've got future transactions dated beyond that, that's fine, they'll still be intact. But your year-end balance, it posts a journal against each of your profit and loss nominal codes to clear those balances down. Now, again, you might want to export that report. You might not. Just leave it as year-end, save it as a PDF, save it to that same folder. And other than that, that's it done. So we're now back in the software. And that's my year-end complete. It tells me on the bottom here what my financial year start date is. I can also go into settings and then financial year, and it will tell me in here as well what the start of the financial year is set to. So if you need that extra confirmation, that's where you'll find it. Right, let's quickly pop back to the slides. So I want to quickly mention a little bit about optional tasks, and I'll mention a little bit about company archives as well. So when you finish your year end, you've completed that process. A lot of people expected at that point to have got rid of older information. So got rid of your old transactions or your old invoices. It doesn't do that. Those are optional tasks. So you've got your clear audit trail option. Clear audit trail, again, these are optional. The keyword there is optional. We've got webinars coming up on these topics, but clear audit trail is optional. If you've got loads of old transactions on your audit trail, so excuse me. So if you've got loads of, as I say, transactions in your transactions list, what we refer to as your audit trail, then you might think, well, actually, there's certain information I don't need in my live company now. So you might go through that process. of clearing your audit trail, getting rid of all the transactions prior to a certain date. You can specify that. You might have old customers, suppliers, nominal codes, bank records that you want to get rid of. So again, you might follow a process to try and get rid of those. Old stock records where you think, well, actually, I'll just get rid of some of the stock transactions. You might also want to get rid of some of those records, so products that you no longer sell. They're just sat there, pretty much redundant, but cluttering up your lists. Similar for invoices, orders, quotations. And if you do any of those tasks, we'd normally then recommend that you compress your data just to make everything run that bit more efficiently again. So we've got loads of recorded webinars. We've got loads of live webinars coming up on these tasks as well. If you are interested, check out that list and get yourself registered. The other one to quickly mention, and this is the one that Laura's going to be covering next week, is company archives. So just to give you a little bit of information about this one. The company archive that gets created as part of your year end is basically, it's a copy of your data as at that point in time. Don't mean up to that time, I mean whatever is in your company as at that point in time. So if I'd entered, let's say, transactions for 2026 into my data, that's fine. It's included in that company archive. It's an exact copy of your data as at that point in time. Now, it copies all of that data. It includes the usernames, your passwords, so do remember those. It's essentially classed as read-only as well. Now, you can remove certain data because of GDPR purposes, but it's used for really for reference and reporting purposes. So you can access an archive very easily. I'll just quickly demonstrate that one for you if you needed it. So this set of data, my live data, I'm in January 2025 as the start date. My company archive, I'll just go File, Open, Company Archive. It'll list any. So obviously I've run that the webinar before, so I've got a previous one, but this is the one that's being created today from the demo. And it means that if I needed to, I could highlight it, click open. And I pop in might be your username and password. It depends what you've got set up. So lets me log into that one. And I'm now in the archive. So it's telling me at the bottom, the financial year start date on the company that I'm looking at is January 2024. Tells me I'm in an archive at the top as well. I can still see the information. I can see my suppliers, my customers. I can see the transactions. It's an exact copy of whatever the data was like at that point in time when I went into that year-end window. I could still go and run a profit and loss report for 2024 if I wanted it. So archives are really useful. You might find, because archives have been around so long, that when you go to File, Open, and Company Archive, you might have a great big list of them. To get back to your live data, it's just File, Open Company Data, or you could just close your software, and when you next come in, it'll open that for you. And then just log in as normal, and that's me back into it. So back into my live company, you can see that January 2025 is the start date for that financial year, and it doesn't mention archive at the top there. Right, just about sort of brings us towards the end of the demos for this afternoon's session. Have you got any final questions? Pop them in. I think we're just about on top of those. So you've kept Abby and Laura very busy this afternoon. So any last minute questions, get them submitted. Remember, there's an opportunity to download a handout if you want a copy of today's slides, but there is detailed information, those step-by-step guides available from our help centre. Watch out for your follow-up email. You'll get that in around about an hour's time. It will include a link to today's recording. There'll be a link to our registration page. So loads of those related topics coming up. Get yourself registered for those, and also a link to our recordings page. Right. We'll just pick up the final few questions. I might get involved with that myself as well. But let me at this stage thank you for coming along. I hope you've enjoyed it. You found it useful. I hope you're going away feeling a little bit more confident, particularly if you've never run one before. I'm sure those of you that have run one before, you'll be thinking, oh yeah, I remember now. Hopefully it's quite straightforward. Good luck if you're about to run that. I'm sure it'll be nice and easy for you. Hopefully nice and quick as well. Let us know otherwise. If you can take a minute to complete the survey, that should pop up as you leave. It'd be greatly appreciated. We love reading those comments. Give us a score, etc. And your follow-up email will be with you in around about an hour's time. Richard, you mentioned there, quick question from Richard there, just in relation to year-end cut-off regarding invoices dealt with in the lock date presentation, etc. We will be covering that sort of thing. So again, get yourself signed up and you'll see that on, as I say, Monday we're covering Company Archive, and a little bit later when we're running the lock date option. But check that out and it'll give you the dates. Jessica, your question, if you haven't run a year end yet, how do you get the TB, P&L and balance sheet for the up-to-date data for management accounts? We're going to be covering that in one of those sessions. If you can't wait for that session, so we're looking at management reports first of all. We've got a session planned in for that one. We've also got a session after that one where we look at how you can run it for a future financial year. So if you're in a position where, like you are, where you haven't run that year end yet, and you want that P&L for the next, what will be your new financial year, how can you get at that? So that's what that other session's covered. So that's management reports, where we look at running it for the previous or a future financial year. If you can't wait to attend that one, so maybe it's not timely for you, there is a recording for that one already available. Again, do check that one out. Or hopefully we'll see you on the live session. A couple of dates for that one as well. We always get asked about that one, which is why we have the management report sessions linking to the running of the year-end sessions. Hopefully we'll see you on it. Any final questions before we end the webinar? Barry, earlier you mentioned about saying please advise all users to run a foreign bank revaluation. Again, that would be covered in sort of your preparation. You would do that before you come to run the year end itself. So again, make sure that you've completed all your processing. And again, the longer you leave it, you might have done subsequent processing where, you know, you've done further foreign bank account revaluations into the new financial year, so that, you know, your year-end revaluation has already been done. But again, that would be something that you would do as part of your preparation rather than the year-end itself. Right, that was the final question. So we'll end the webinar at that point. Many thanks for coming along, and hopefully we'll see you on some other sessions very, very soon. Many thanks.